Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is the Archer Football Podcast. I am Dana. We have the whole gang tonight, so God knows. This is why we put out there that we had to keep Lisa under 10 minutes because all four of us are here. Because y'all know she'd do all 30 minutes about quarterbacks. But we're not going to let her today. We are going to keep her under control while we talk about the AFC West. It is day 720 of the offseason, or at least it feels like it. It's day 210 of it's too damn hot for Dana to do her hair. So, it's just summer. That's just where we're at right now. And so we are glad that you guys are here with us. To start, if you guys are watching on Twitter or on Facebook, come over to the YouTube channel, please. We have a live chat and we love to post your comments on the video. And chit chat with you back and forth, answer questions if you have it, all that good stuff. So please head on over to YouTube because we want to talk with you. So once again, I have Kate, I have Lisa, I have Sonia. Go ahead, Lisa, show off your shirt, do your little happy dance.
Yes. 2024 Stanley Cup champions in the house.
She had a good night last night. Woohoo! So this is what is hilarious is that Lisa had her Panthers shirt on. Sonia, where's your shirt from again?
Greenville. It's the Boston Red Sox minor league team, Greenville, South Carolina.
And then I have my Royal shirt on. Kate just had a shirt. She's like, wait. And off she went to go grab her Guardians shirt. So we are all repping other sports, but we are here to talk to you about football. All right. So we are going to start once again. We are doing our summer edition of getting everyone caught back up on the different divisions throughout football. We will go through all of them by the time or right about the time that training camp starts. So you can just get a grasp on where every team landed the 2023 season and what has happened in the offseason and kind of where they're headed. Once again, we do not do predictions during these, just simply because we save that for our big Pick'em show, which is the Tuesday before the regular season begins. All right. AFC West, home of the somewhat surprising repeat Super Bowl champions. I don't think mid-season last year, many thought, including their fans here in Kansas City, thought that was going to happen. We have, three teams with massive amounts of turnover. We have a new, God help us all, head coach back now in the AFC West. So we are going to talk about all four teams. We are going to start with the reigning Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. There's not a lot to say, and yet a whole bunch to say about the Chiefs this year. Last year was so bizarre to me. They were kind of a disaster and yet still so good. They were a little baffling for a while. Where did they end the 2023 season, Sonia?
So they ended the regular season actually on a little bit of a skid.
Yeah.
But we do know that they ended the season
right.
Super Bowl champs. So there's that. But no, their record last season was 14-6. They had a rough December. They were 2-3 in December, and they eked out a win against the Chargers, 13-12, if you all remember correctly. And so I think that kind of got them started. So they probably kind of got their rest in December to be able to gear up for their Super Bowl run. But it was just kind of an up and down kind of season for them. But they ended definitely the regular season on a rough note.
They were probably more hit and miss last year than we've seen them in a long time. Let's be honest. They seem to be having a ton of problems. We knew their wide receiver situation was not good. They had some depth problems. And so this was not the Chiefs of the year before where you're like, yep, they're running the table. We're done. Let's just pick them in September and be done with the whole thing. It was a little interesting, but they made some pretty big changes. Maybe not like wide sweeping changes that maybe other teams did, but they did make some changes in the offseason. Kate, what were kind of their bigger additions and subtractions?
So they signed Carson Wentz at quarterback, so we could have a backup for Patrick Mahomes. They had some big issues at wide receiver. They tried to address that. They signed Marquise Brown, and then they drafted Xavier Worthy, speedy little dude. And they're going to need both of them because their wide receiver that's coming back, Rashid Rice, has some legal issues and may not be available for the first few weeks of the season. We'll have to see. But I still think their losses outweigh the additions that they got in the offseason. They lost cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, linebacker Willie Gay, offensive tackle Donovan Smith, and guard Nick Allegretti. So I think they're still probably the odds-on favorite in this division. They still might have the best roster in the division, but they definitely saw where they had some issues at wide receiver and tried to address that.
For sure. We're going to talk about Xavier Worthy in a minute. My opinion has not changed about him. He's adorable, but a stiff wind could blow him right over. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think, honest to God, Elisa will attest and scream this from the rooftops at the top of her lungs, that they have the magic bullet, and that magic bullet is Patrick Mahomes. Am I wrong, Lisa?
No, you're not. And everything you said and everything Kate said adds, it doesn't matter. You can have a mediocre team around him. His eliteness just in the playoffs just shine. I mean, he rises any player to a different level. He rises that team to a different level. And like I said, and I'm going to quote Michelle Jenks, because Michelle has said they're at the top of the mountain. And until they're knocked off, they're going to stay at the top of the mountain. And right now, AFC West is their mountain until a team proves us for different. And, you know, when you look at the backup quarterback with Easton Stick, you better keep Patrick Mahomes healthy. That's all I can say.
But they did sign Carson Wentz.
They did.
So,
they got. I'm sorry. Easton Stick is Herbert's. Yes, they did. I'm sorry. I meant Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Which,
like
right. I said, I meant I've got my teams mixed up.
That's okay.
But when you look at Mahomes, you look at the Wentz. That's a great signing to me, because you know he's not some, you know, he proved he can play in this league. So as far as, you know, your backups are concerned, I think they still to me have the 1-2 duo. Regardless, if we talk about any one of these quarterbacks, exactly in this division, any one of these starting quarterbacks that we will talk about here in a little bit go down. I think the Chiefs are in the better, once again, driver's seat than the other three teams. So
Sonia, sorry, hold on a second. Sonia, so talking about Carson Wentz, because I do think, okay, so you look at the Chiefs. They've had players they've probably had the grossest offseason. Let's be honest with that. They had to let one player go for multiple charges that were against him. Then you have Rice's issue for sure. But it was interesting. They had a pretty good draft. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't, you know, shiny, but it filled the needs that they were looking at. But here's the thing for me with Carson Wentz. Sonia, do you think, and I want answers from all three of you guys about this, do you think the signing of Carson Wentz is anything other than just a backup, or is it possible they're a little worried about the durability of Patrick Mahomes? I mean, because we've seen him limp on and off the field almost every single season.
We have seen him limp on and off the field, but we've also seen Carson Wentz limp on and off the field as well. So I think that it's more so just a backup and insurance policy. And I think that's a pretty daggone good one. But yeah, I think it's more so he's just a backup right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, until he needs to not be. Kate, do you disagree?
I think if they're smart, one of the problems, and one of the things that I think we've even talked about with folks on Twitter, is when you get to the fourth quarter and you're up by 20 and 30 points and Pat Mahomes is still out there under center, you're like, why is he still playing? I imagine them putting him on sort of like a pitch count. If they get ahead far enough to get him durable through the whole season, you can throw Carson Wentz in the fourth quarter and he can do the last couple series, probably score some points. You don't have to worry about it. I see that as more of a season-long thing they might try to do with him, but definitely they need some better protection if he does get injured again.
It's true. It's true. All right. So let's talk about Xavier Worthy for just a second. Listen, he's adorable, right? And he's super speedy and he's fun to watch. He's 5'11", 165.
Jesus.
I mean, so Lisa, what do you do with a wide receiver like that? Like, is he just special teams? Is he a package player? What is he?
You get separation is what you do.
And
that's what you do. You use that speed like Tyreek Hill does. You get separation. You get that ball where they're not on top of you. I mean, when you have that type of speed and you know, sometimes you can free yourself. It depends on what, if he's a great route runner, I don't know about special teams. That might be a little hairy.
I know, right?
Especially with the new rule, right? I mean, that might be a little bit hairy. I don't know if I would trust that. But when you have a Patrick Mahomes throwing to you, you just gotta practice. You gotta get on the same page. You gotta see what's going to happen. And it's going to be fun, like you said, to watch during preseason, because you'll get little flashes of, but to me, it's separation. Be a great route runner, get separation. Don't, minimize your hits.
Well, we'll see. The thing about Tyreek Hill is that he was also quite sturdy. You know what I mean? So that's fast but sturdy. What were you going to say, Kate?
Well, so what you want with someone like that is you want him to draw the defenses down, which means you've got to give him time to get down. He won't need as much because he's speedy. But at some point, you're going to have to throw to him. Mm-hmm. And hopefully Andy Reid will ease him into the NFL and will set him up with plays where he will have that separation so he doesn't get Cam Hayward. Oh
my God. Like, it hurts me to think about it.
I know. But they're going to, because if they keep just letting him run out there, if they don't ever actually throw to him, the defenses will stop covering him. And that's what he can bring to the table. If he's a real threat, that defense will have to worry about him.
Yeah, it's true.
And they'll play back too. They'll play off of him a little bit too. Sure. So you're going to have a lot of in cuts of 5-6 yards and a lot of run after the catches with him. So you're still probably going, like you said, still take some hits because they're going to be playing far off of him because of that speed.
Y'all remember that hit all those years ago when Cam Chancellor hit Vernon Davis?
I remember a lot of hits.
That poor kid. All right, so the NFL Chiefs
is still a thing, right? We haven't talked about him. He's still there.
Yeah.
All right, enough said.
Everyone talks about Travis Kelce all the time, and he's adorable and he's funny and he's got a talented girlfriend and now Hallmark. Did you guys read that today?
What?
So for those of you guys who don't know, Hallmark is their headquarters here in Kansas City. They are based here in Kansas City. They are doing a Christmas movie, which they are famous for their Christmas movies, about a Chiefs romance.
I want to be in it.
You're not a Chiefs fan.
But I'm a Hallmark fan.
Chiefs fan and their PR
you have to be a Chiefs fan?
It's all about the Chiefs. Anyway, it's adorable. And we love you, Travis Kelce, but everyone talks about you all the time. I want to talk about somebody else. So, all right, so let's do this. Kristen says they lost a lot of talent and they could be better than ever. And that is what's so frustrating about
I disagree. Team. I don't think they lost that much talent.
Yeah.
Some, but like you said, that wasn't the team that was as good as the team before that.
But the couple that they lost were some of their better players. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I still think, again, in this division, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So, all right, believe it or not, the next one up is the Raiders. And I say believe it or not because I didn't realize that they ended up second in the division. I thought they were way worse than that. So they ended up 8-9 on the season. But Sonia, it was ugly last year. Sonia, you
okay, sorry. My mouse is floating around. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so they had an 8-9 record. They finished actually 3-2, and they had a massive win against the Chargers, though, 63-21, if we remember correctly. And looking back, they kind of won the games that they were supposed to win. They beat the Giants. They beat the Jets. They beat, they beat like the Bears. They beat a lot of teams that they were supposed to beat. And actually the second time around, they beat everybody in their division. So, I mean, I think that they finished on a higher note than people really can, people remember. But they did okay, I think. 8-9. I mean, they were second in the division, like you said. So they had a little bit better of a season, I think, than we realized.
Than we remember, which says something because we don't really remember them for sure.
Exactly.
What kind of changes were made on the team, Kate?
Well, so one of the biggest changes is they fired Josh McDaniel during the season last year, and Antonio Pierce took over as interim head coach, and the players just love him. And I consider it an addition because they offered him the contract, and he is now their official head coach. They signed defensive lineman Christian Wilkins. He's an interior lineman. Lisa's probably very familiar with him, but he racks up stats and sacks like he's an edge rusher. He's amazing. They brought in Gardner Minshew. Running back Alexander Madison, who I believe was with the Vikings, to kind of replace. They lost Josh Jacobs. They brought Gardner in because they lost Jimmy Garoppolo. they drafted my favorite tight end in the draft, Brock Bowers. So they made a few changes. I give him a B. I think the head coach signing him probably did more for player morale and locker room stuff. He is a player's coach. He is part of why they ended the year on such a high note. Ended up second. They had the same record as the third place team, but they won the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
But I think really what Pierce is going to bring as the official head coach is probably more than any of the players that they drafted or signed.
So, Lisa, before we talk about the quarterbacks, I am going to read this. I talked to my friend Mo Moten. He is, for those of you guys who don't follow him on Twitter, he is fantastic. It's at MOEMOTON. And I just said, Mo, here's the deal. By the way, he works for Bleacher Report, TNT Sports, True TV. He's a Raiders writer for Sports Night. He's fantastic. So follow him. He is great. But I said, Mo, the Raiders are the team I'm having the hardest time wrapping my hand around. Like the other teams, you can kind of see where they're at, see where they're going, see a direction. I can't wrap my head around the Raiders. Tell me something good here is basically what I said to him. And so this is what he wrote to me, and I thought it was really interesting. He said, in a draft cycle of quarterback musical chairs, the Las Vegas Raiders were left standing without a viable option at number 13. Very true. So Raiders fans are collectively holding their breath in hopes that Aiden O'Connell plays like a franchise quarterback, or Gardner Minshew pulls off his best Rich Gannon impersonation. For the first time in a long time, the Raiders have a stingy defense that ranked 9th in scoring last year, but the offense failed to pull its weight on multiple occasions in 2023. And then he said, head coach Antonio Pierce wants the offense to score at least 24 points a game. And if the Raiders are going to meet that expectation, they need to see growth in O'Connell, and Minshew has to be their best journeyman quarterback in addition since Gannon. And I think once again, at MOEMOTON, love Mo. Thank you so much for sending that to me. This is where I was at. I just asked him, I'm like, where are the fans at with this? Because it just seems like, you look at their depth chart, and there's some talent there. Yeah. You got to look at that and you're like, okay, but they have on ESPN's depth chart anyway, they have O'Connell starting with Minshew second. I don't know that that's how it'll be coming out of training camp. We'll wait and see. They still have Devontae Adams. They have Jacoby Myers. They got Brock Bowers. I think that was huge, huge, huge for them. And they still have, you cannot ignore Max Crosby, right? Like that is huge. So there is definitely some talent here in Vegas. They were just very forgettable for me last year. And I think that's why I had such a hard time. Lisa, what do we make of this quarterback situation? Gardner Minshew, if you ask most people around NFL fans if they like Gardner Minshew, everyone loves him. He's a hysterical personality. He's got the cheesy little, mustache going. Love him to death. But he's also quite a quarterback. He's not an elite. He's not a superstar, but he is a quarterback that does his job. And then you have Aiden O'Connell. Tell me where we're at with this.
The thing with this is you got to look at Aiden O'Connell. He got thrown into this mix when Josh got fired. Okay. Yep. He, when all that mess went down, he got thrown into, to me, he pretty much had nothing to lose. I mean, he's just going to go out there and show everything he has because he's not under any pressure. He wasn't the starting quarterback. So it makes this year very interesting because now he is projected to be the starter, but you have Gardner Minshew who's going to push you because, Gardner Minshew did what Gardner Minshew's done on every single team he's done. He's been a great backup. Mm-hmm. I mean, he brought the Colts to the playoff brink. I mean, he wasn't bad, right? I mean, that's what you want out of your quarterback, your backup quarterback. So to me, it's going to be real interesting because as far as you're looking at the blogs and stuff with the Raiders and Mo, and you can project it Aiden just because Aiden was there, might know the system, but it's still an open competition to me. It's still going to be to see who starts because it's just going to depend on how Aiden responds to being a starter.
Okay.
Because last year, he just got thrown in the middle of the season. There's no pressure on him. Now, you're going to have Raider Nation watching you. You're going to have Gardner Minshew breathing down your neck. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think either one of these guys are franchise quarterbacks. I still think you're going to have to put yourself in position down the line to try to better that position. So it's just depending on the pressure that O'Connell's going to be under. because Minshew, he's got that laid back. He's gonna come in and just sling the rock.
He's like, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. He's been in the league,
care.
so you got to think that he's got the upper edge as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
But it's good to have two quarterbacks in the stables to push each other, because that's what you want.
Right.
You want competition.
Couple comments from our comment. Once again, if you guys are watching on Facebook or Twitter, come over to the YouTube channel, join our chat room. We love to hear from you. This is a big one from Camden. Raiders culture change could matter a lot. And I think that's a lot of it. You did see an uptick in that team once Joshy Boy was gone, which you know how I feel about him. So I think that will be huge for them. And then Kristen said O'Connell never heard of him. Max Crosby is that team, and he really is. O'Connell, though, he was, one of their backups last year. And so, like Lisa said, he knows the system, but which system and how much now that Pierce has the full-time job, is that going to change? And what all comes with that? I think that's really, really interesting.
With a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to be a starting quarterback. There's a lot, because at that time, fans, at the middle of the season, what do fans expect? Right. I mean, at that point, it's like, if you tank, it's like, yeah, well, we knew it. Okay. But he did halfway decent. And, I think culture has a change, but culture doesn't breed talent. That's my thing. I understand the culture change. And I think Pierce brought that, like Kate said, the players respond. That, to me, that's just a player responding to a coach.
Could be. So Camden also says, could the Raiders tank for a quarterback? I don't think they'd tank. I think that they will just
tanking.
They might not have a choice. There is an interesting thing.
They should.
No one should ever tank. So here's the thing. Here is the thing. It was said somewhere that the Raiders, what was the quote? Hold on, I wrote it down. It said the Raiders, they have been over predicted win totals 4 out of the last 5 seasons. This will be the year that probably doesn't happen. They have too many obstacles, but you never know, right? You never, because they were better than we thought last year for sure. All right.
I don't know that Raider Nation has been happy since John Gruden got fired. They seem to like him, and the team itself has been a mess since then. But I will say, because somebody was asking, Aiden O'Connell went to Purdue and was drafted by the Raiders in the 4th round.
Not this year, but the year before.
The year before.
Yeah, the year before. So he's fairly new. I mean, like you said, he got thrown into it, but you just
played 10 games. I think he's been in 11 games. He started 10. He's 5-5.
So
he's young, he's raw, he's okay, but he wasn't a 1st or 2nd. He was a 4th round pick.
Right.
That ended up having to start when Garoppolo got hurt. And now that's why I really lean toward Minshew's going to be able to earn that job in camp, because his experience is going to be, his overall NFL experience is worth more than Aiden's 1 year with the Raiders experience.
Yeah, I think so.
And Gardner Minshew has a great reputation of gelling with wide receivers, and him and Adams just might be a formidable duo to deal with. So it's going to be interesting to watch their preseason.
All right, Lisa. 7 of your 10 minutes is that? No, I'm just kidding.
I've been good.
You've been so good. I'm just teasing. We told Lisa she was only getting 10 minutes to talk about.
I'm trying.
We already talked about Minshew. Aren't we done with the quarterbacks in this team?
Yeah, we are now. All right. So we're going to move on to the Broncos now. Tied 8-9.
Oh, God.
My favorite coach.
Well, this might be where I might get in trouble, because there's a whole ton of stuff.
I hate this. All right, Sean Payton. All right, so obviously QB is the number one issue. We are going to talk about that here in just a second. But let's talk about a few other things. They cleared out, right? Jerry Jeudy's gone. A whole bunch of their defensive players are gone. They cleared out. And yet they kept some interesting players too. So here's the thing. Okay, let me just do this. I God help me. I listened to Colin Cowherd. I know I shouldn't. I know I need an intervention, but I did listen to him. And he said he truly believes the Raiders are going to be one of the most, or not the Raiders, I'm sorry. The Broncos are going to be one of the most surprising teams of the season. And it made me laugh out loud. So thank you very much for the
surprisingly good or surprisingly bad?
Good. He thinks they're going to be much better than obviously they got rid but anyway, I don't know. I have a lot to say about that, but let's talk about where they ended last season with some.
Okay. So they had an 8-9 record. Took forever for them to get their first win. They finished 2-6. So not good at all. And And both wins in that last little stretch were against the Chargers. So there's that. But yeah, they did not have a good finish to last season.
No. And why? Because they benched Russell Wilson. I don't even want to hear it right now from you people. I don't.
It's
okay.
true.
So anyway. All right. So let's talk about their additions and subtractions. We know Russell Wilson's gone. Okay, we know that, people. But what are some of that?
And do we know that Russell Wilson left behind $85 million in dead money on the salary cap? Just saying.
Get your money,
$85
Russ.
million. So they're hoping to replace him with Bo Nix, who was one of my favorite picks in the draft. I was surprised at it, but I think it's a good pick for them. And then they traded for Zach Wilson. So they've got an interesting quarterback room for Lisa to talk about. And they picked up safety Brandon Jones. They lost, I think, way more than they added. Jerry Jeudy is now a Cleveland Brown. They lost linebacker Josie Jewell, center Lloyd Cushenberry, safety Justin Simmons. Like, they lost the middle of the offensive line and the defensive line. Any of you people who have the Broncos on your schedule this year, my recommendation would just be to run up the middle. It's going to be soft. They lost more than they got. I'm sorry. That's just, it is what it is.
It's no question. No question. So before we get into their quarterbacks, because that is the biggest issue, I want to say I took a little look at their schedule. And they have some not very good teams that they might do okay against. I mean, they played the Panthers, and we all know where the Panthers are at right now. And then they have to play the Steelers. Russell Wilson comes back to Denver to play. They have to play Seattle. God knows what that's going to be like this year. They have to play the Browns. They have some heavy hitters. They have to play the Jets, probably with Aaron Rodgers in New York. These poor quarterbacks.
I'm telling you, when the NFL does the schedules, they're playing all the teams their players went to.
For real.
They're playing weird. Russell. They're going to play against Jerry Jeudy. They're going to play against the Jets,
Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson,
And I swear, Russell Wilson, every time he goes to a new team, like his first or second game is against his old team.
It is. Yeah, always.
It's their schedule is crazy. From out of this whole division, they face more opponents that have players they let go than anyone else.
Yeah, it makes for good content, right? That's what we're here for. Lisa, what the hell do you do with this quarterback room? Bo Nix completely unproven.
First of all,
and Zach Wilson.
Let's talk about practice, okay? Let's talk about practice.
Practice.
And you know how I practice, you know how to. But apparently, it's not going very well in practice for Mr. And this was cute. I love this little the X comment from formerly known as Twitter is saying that Zach Wilson, his new style, his new hairdo, he's got this new slick back doing his best Bo Callahan impression. So apparently he has been struggling mightily in practice. Okay. Let's just, practice. But I have no idea. I mean, you have Bo Nix, who you drafted, me, first quarterback. To me, he better be on the field. That's me. Mm-hmm. I'm going with him. I'm just putting the rookie out there. Jarrett Stidham is interesting because, he's got,
I forgot about
experience.
him.
Yeah. He's got experience. I mean, out of all, three of these quarterbacks, if you look at it right now, on paper, Jarrett Stidham probably should start. So you look, but I mean, at this point, you probably you anticipate Bo Nix starting. Depending, we don't know. I mean, we don't know how the kid's going to be. It's going to be, like you said, that's some heavy hitting competition he's going to be facing. So I said,
it's a game of Yahtzee.
It pretty much is. It pretty much is. I mean, unless Zach Wilson has a come to Jesus moment under Sean Payton. Like I said, he doesn't seem like it's a fit. It already seems like the fans are kind of turning on him with it. They're going after him. The poor guy comes in with a new haircut. It's like, man, that's all that was said. So you're not even watching this. And so it'll be interesting, but man, I'll tell you that quarterback and all these teams, they're still fighting up a massive hill, and with this one, to me, is the bottom of the barrel as far as,
that's actually, go ahead. So Kristen said in chat, and Sonia, I'm going to send this one to you. Are the Broncos predicted to be last place in the NFL? Do you think that it's going to be that bad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask Sonia.
It could be. I mean, like Kate said, they gave up a lot more than they got back, and it's going to be hard. And you've got unproven quarterbacks. It could be a very tough hill for them to climb up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could see them easily being last. Easily.
So funny because it
We
all
should
comes down
revisit
to
this when we talk about the NFC South in a couple weeks.
fair enough. 100% fair. But I do think this. I think it's so bizarre because everyone seems really split on this team. You have the Colin Cowards who think that they're going to be this huge surprise and super good because they have so much faith in Sean Payton. And then you see this other half where they're like, you're going to run through all three of these quarterbacks by halfway through the season. Like, what are you doing? You know? And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Broncos.
This to me is where not having that many preseason hurts a team.
Fair.
This situation right here means every single practice is going to matter. Every single joint practice is going to be under a microscope because you're going to be under tremendous pressure to try to figure out which one of these guys is going to be your starter for day one.
For sure. All right. So I liked this comment from Camden. Justin Fields kick return versus Broncos. Because I can't wait to talk about I can't wait to see the Steelers on the field. I'm dying to know what they're going to do. It's going to be so fun. But anyway, all right. So let's finish up and we're going to be over. Sorry, Camden, we didn't make it to 30 minutes. It's because there's 4 of us. And when there's 4 of us, we just talk a lot more. So, all right. But let's talk about these Chargers. God love evil Harbaugh. I am so glad Jim Harbaugh is back in the league. I want him to throw a clipboard on the floor, have a little meltdown.
It's gonna happen.
NFL Network replayed the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl. I just laughed the whole time. It made me so happy. His little temper tantrums make me so happy. So I'm glad that he's back. But Chargers weren't great last year, were they, Sonia? They struggled. They had an issue.
They struggled mightily.
Yeah. Right.
They struggled mightily. However, they had a 5-12 record. Looking back at it, though, they lost some pretty close games. Honestly, the only one that they really got blown out in was the Raiders. But they lost some close games. I mean, within, I think, 10 points in some cases. So not terribly awful, but still they were 5-12. It was not a good season. They got, Mr. Harbaugh back. So we'll see about that. I will be interested to see if we get evil Harbaugh because now he's in the NFL, because we definitely did not get evil Harbaugh. We started with evil Harbaugh, but then I think he got his wings clipped. So we'll see. We'll see.
The college world says, don't act like a baby. Is that what?
Yeah, because they they kept penalizing his team. But in the NFL, it's not really like that. So we'll see.
God, I hope so. It'll just make me just so happy. You have no idea. Kate, this draft. Oh my God. If we could all be so lucky to have a Chargers draft. I'm just telling you.
Where do I start the list?
Right.
Do you want me to start the list? I mean, seriously, the biggest addition they made was hiring Jim Harbaugh. He is going to completely change that team, that culture, that everything. They drafted offensive tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. They got DJ Shark at wide receiver. They signed Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins at running back. That's going to be a whole different offense this year. They lost Mike Williams and they lost Keenan Allen. And their center Corey Linsley retired. It's going to be interesting to see how they do there as far as replacing him, but it's going to be a whole different. The 5-12, I think, really played into what they did in the draft and what they did in the offseason, because Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than that record shows, and they swapped out weapons and got him better weapons. So, I like what they did in the draft. I like what they're doing. I can't stand evil Harbaugh, but I think he's the right person for this job. That's completely my Buckeye bias showing itself. But I think he may prove to be the most important addition to this team because he'll be there long after some of these players are no longer playing there.
You know how they're going to do at center? Just fine. They picked up Bradley Bozeman. They're going to be just Fine. Let me tell you this before we get to talk about Herbert just for a minute, because I was looking at their depth chart and I was going through it because I was like kind of trying to refamiliarize. I had forgotten until we were talking about the Bears about Keenan Allen. So I wanted to go and kind of refamiliarize myself. Realized that Evil Harbaugh picked up 2 Seattle starters from last year. And the reason why this is interesting to me, he picked up Poona Ford, who is a defensive end, and then he picked up Will Dissly. Good old Will, Uncle Will. We called him Uncle Will for years. He's a tight end. Will he can catch a good football, but he's a blocking tight end. And the interesting thing with Harbaugh is that the reason why the Niners-Seahawks rivalry was so good for so long is they built their teams a lot alike. They went head to head for everything, right? Which by him picking up those 2 players, to me, is giving you a glimpse of how he's changing. I think the Chargers for the last few years have tried to be a finesse team. And I think he wants to turn them into a gritty team because that's how he likes to play football. So that was really interesting to me that he went and grabbed both of those. And they were both Pete Carroll picks. Those were Pete Carroll players. And so I think that I'm not trying to give Pete credit for anything. I don't want any crap from anybody. It just was like a little glimpse to me of maybe how he was trying to make some changes to this team. One thing he can't change, though, Lisa, is his quarterback. I am fascinated to see what he can get out of Herbert, who we have been chiming about since he came in, and we're not getting what we think we should out of him.
Right. And that's the big talk right now is that this is going to change. And when you look at this division and you look at the Chiefs and the Chargers, these are your 2 quarterbacks, right? These are your 2 quarterbacks. Definitely. When you look at what we just talked about with the backups, we talked about, to me, the Chiefs are in a little bit better of a backup situation just because of Easton Stick. I mean, the good old North Dakota State University, baby. He's but he's been in the league for a while. He was drafted so when you look at him and you look at this, these are the 2 quarterbacks that they think is going to be 1-2 in the division. Let's face it. But this is Justin's year, right? I mean, this is Herbert. I mean, this is the guy, the coach they brought in to evaluate him now to elevate his game because coaching matters. Coaching matters. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to this whole new coaching staff, these new players he's got. Like I said, I think he's got a lot of upgraded weapons to go to. So to me, no excuse here. No excuse. Yeah, you have a new coach, you have new coaches, but and we've talked about that with quarterbacks that have the physical ability to be great quarterbacks. Right. Going through offensive coordinators year after year, coaches year after year. I mean, it's got to be tough on these guys. Right. So, but I think he's young enough. I think Harbaugh knows this and is going to really protect him, keep the players behind, around him, surround him. This is his team. I think that's been very made clear to the kid. So I don't think he's worried about that. Got some upgraded weapons. So it's going to be the Chiefs and the Chargers, 2 quarterback battles to watch and
bring that out.
See who can bring it home.
Right. What were you going to say, Kate?
So I saw someone in the chat asked about Austin Eckler, and I did not mention him as leaving the team. He left and went and signed with the Commanders. In 2021, he had 20 touchdowns. In 23, he had like 18. Last year, he had 6. I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't know that his leaving the team is going to be a big loss that's felt by them with the other players they got in. I hope he finds his groove back. He carried me to a fantasy football championship in 21, so I keep an eye on him. But I don't think the Chargers are going to miss him. I do hope the Commanders make good use of him and that he gets it. But he was not himself. I think he missed 3 or 4 games for injury. And like I said, 6 touchdowns.
I don't think they knew he was their only weapon. Every other team did. And so the kid was smothered. I don't know that all of that was on Eckler. I think a lot of that had to do with scheme and them desperately trying to get Herbert going. Sometimes you got to kind of run with your quarterback there it'll be interesting. But yes, and that is the perfect example of why we do these shows, because as I forgot about Keenan Allen, someone else forgot about Eckler. And you just have to be reminded there's a lot of teams. So we try and keep up on them. Sonia, when you look at the AFC West, it feels a lot like Lisa's old division. Division was a few years ago. You have the Kings on top with the Chiefs, which were the Patriots, and then you have everyone else trying to figure it out. Do you feel like any of these other 3 teams are close to figuring it out?
potentially. I
Okay.
think the Raiders might be closest. I think they might be the closest to figuring it out.
Could be.
And then second behind them would be the Chargers. And I
Mhm.
kind of think they might be neck and neck, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially if Jim can get from Justin Herbert what, he kind of wants to and is starting to build his team.
Mhm.
I think that those two could be kind of the closest thing to dethroning the Chiefs.
Yeah. Lisa, when you look at this division, you know, you see, you just mentioned it. You have an elite quarterback, a very good, possibly could be closer to elite quarterback. We just haven't gotten it from him yet. And then kind of a mess in the middle. But to what Sonia just said, I think the Raiders might be closest. They're just a quarterback out. Do you think it's more than that? Do you think that if they drafted the right guy next year, or if O'Connell all of a sudden explodes and turns into Brock Purdy or whatever it may be, do you think that is the quarterback the key there?
And the Raiders, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I don't know about either one of these guys. Gardner's a backup. You're not going to beat Mahomes or Herbert with a backup quarterback. I mean, you might. It just depends on what Jim does with Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Herbert might, just not have it. We don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the type of team we're going to see with Harbaugh. We know in the past, and we know what kind of coach he is. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely not a setup for failure there for sure. So you have to think right now with the Raiders and their quarterback stable, they're the team to watch, because are they close? We don't know. To me, no. Until you prove to me that you can either get close to a Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert on paper, Justin Herbert. These two bottom teams between the Broncos and the Raiders, they're in quarterback purgatory. To me, they are. I mean, it's we just don't know.
Yeah. Well, but one draft. We have seen one draft change all of that. I'm going to ask you about the Broncos, Kate. I'm totally biased against this team, and it is just simply because I absolutely hate their head coach, and not like we hate Bill Belichick because he won for 20 years. Like, I don't think he's a good human, and so I just don't like the guy. But remove him from the situation if you can. Do you think that, much like people talk about down in Dallas, that maybe John Elway is a little bit of the problem up there? And do you think that they'll keep Sean Payton around long enough, because they have been known, they're going through these, coaches, keep him around long enough to actually fix this team?
First of all, John Elway is the Antichrist. If you don't believe me, Google it. You'll find the blog I wrote 20 years ago, because I still hate Denver. I'm in Cleveland.
We really don't like Denver.
Do you not remember the drive, the fumble? Need I continue?
I know.
I do think that John Elway is a sliding under the radar Jerry Jones. People don't talk about him that way unless you're in Denver or know people from Denver, and they talk about him that way.
They do.
But I think he also is very savvy when it comes to PR, and he is going to keep Sean Payton around long enough.
Okay.
Give him enough rope, so to speak. He's had quarterback carousel going on there for years. He needs to keep the head coach solid for a little while, and he really needs one of the guys in their quarterback room to pan out for 5 years. And I think the Chargers are the closest. I mean, it's so weird. The last couple of weeks, the divisions we've talked about are all flip a quarter. Any one of the four could win.
Right.
And this is that the Chiefs and then everybody else.
Right. Exactly.
I tend to think like Lisa. I think the Chargers are closest because they already have their quarterback.
Okay.
If they can get him to play and perform, they already have him. The Broncos and Raiders need some more preseason games so they can see what they have in their quarterback room. And we'll know by week 4 what they're going to do, I think, and how long the leashes are and stuff. But yeah, I think Elway is the issue there.
It could be. I think, how hilarious would it be? Well, before I tell you this, Camden's thrown a hot take out there. I think the Chargers are going to lead the division. Love it. Camden, good for you.
They might lead it, but they ain't going to win.
Get another picture, because I got that one from Lisa last week talking about my AFC West. I got to. There it is. I got it.
Here's the other thing, and I want to end this because we're over 15 minutes over now. But how funny would it be if Dallas decides to not pay Dak Prescott and he ends up in Denver?
He ends up where?
In
Denver?
I thought that go
That'd be
from
a good landing
one
spot
crazy
for him.
owner to another crazy owner. I love it, love it, love it. All right, everyone.
Michelle will lose
that
her
is
mind.
our show. Wait, why do I always forget to look up what show we're doing next week? I got it right here. Hold on, people. I got you.
And it's
All right.
Dakota, not Dak. It's Dakota.
Oh,
Dakota.
yes. Our good friend Michelle always calls him Dakota. All right, everyone. So that's our show, AFC West this week. Next week, we have the NFC South.
Ugh.
Ooh.
Could be interesting. That'll be a good conversation. I'm excited about that one. So we are here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. But again, if you guys are watching on one of those, please come over to the YouTube channel while we are live and you can chit chat with us because we love to have conversations with you guys. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions. And, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I want to thank my friend Mo once again for sending me his little quote on the Raiders. He's a fantastic follow, you guys. So make sure, even if you're not a Raiders fan, he talks about all the sports. So it's really interesting. So go ahead and follow him. And we'll be back next Tuesday right here. We'll talk to you guys then. Thanks so much.